What's going on, everyone, and welcome to the 99th episode of Double M Live. I'm one of your hosts, Mr. Mike Nice. Usually, joining me is my brother, DJ Mees, my brother Marv, but this is a special show we're doing here. So I tagged out Marv and we tagged in the executive producer. Hot tag. Audience is going, the crowd's going wild right now for this hot tag. And we brought in the executive producer, Cool Sam, El Cutie Con
God.
Gap, holding it down with me for the 99th episode. And this is a special one. So, Sam, I appreciate you being here, my brother.
Hey, the honor's all mine. I appreciate the invite. I'm ready to have a good time, my brother.
Yeah, so it's the 99th episode. Double M has been on a little bit of a hiatus just to give a little personal piece of information. I had double knee surgery. I'll put it out there. I'm an
Both.
athlete. I'm all over the place. So I had both of my knees cut open. So it's been a rough and tough last couple of months for me. But what did Seth Rollins say? Rebuild,
Mm-hmm.
redesign,
The last one. Rebuild, redesign.
return,
Yep.
reclaim, rebuild, redesign, reclaim. So that's
Yep.
where I'm at right now. I'm in the process of redesigning, rebuilding, and I'm coming back to reclaim all of my men's leagues and softball leagues and all of that.
Mm.
So I'm on the men, but I'm feeling good. So we jumping right back into Double M, season 4, Double M still to the moon. But Sam, we got to talk about something here.
Yes, we do.
Real quick, let's let the people know that we're doing something huge for the 100th episode. It's gonna be a big one. We got to celebrate. Marv and I have been putting in work for Double M for a long time, so we're celebrating the 100th episode and doing it big with a live audience. Special guest DJ H will be joining us,
Oh,
and he'll be holding down the tunes. And we're gonna do it big for the 100th episode, and we want everybody to not only join the conversation but be there live with us as we do a big show for number 100.
where can they pull up, Mike?
April 15th, it's going down. More information definitely on the way, but stay tuned, be on the lookout for more information dropping about that 100th episode. But if you can make it, please do. We want everyone there to join and celebrate with us.
Yes, sir. And yours truly is hosting, so
Oh, yeah. Sam will be on the mic, the MC, holding it down.
you
At
already
Double
know what that means.
M. It's going to be a good night. But let's get into episode 99. We have a special guest for this show, and I'm truly honored that this man has given us some time here as we record this show. Shout out to my time with 985, the Sports Hub. This guy was a huge help for me as I continue to make my way in the sports world, understanding production and whatnot. Just to give you a little bit of background about our guest joining us. He's the executive producer of the Felger and Maz show with 985 The Sports Hub. And he's also one of the hosts of Wrestling Inside the Ropes, the podcast. Make sure you check that out.
Great
We
part.
want to introduce to the show tonight my guy, Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy, come on in. Welcome to the show. Hey, we got
Yay.
to get the special effects one day soon.
Yay.
That's coming soon.
Bah, 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 bah.
Rebuild, redesign, reclaim.
There it is.
What it was.
That is what you're doing, Mike.
There it is. That's exactly what I'm doing, following the Seth Rollins, example.
Seth
Um,
freaking Rollins.
Seth freaking Rollins. Let me get it right. Seth freaking Rollins. But Jimmy, it's a pleasure to have you here joining us for the 99th episode. This is a show I've been looking forward to a long time. Having you here, having Sam here, because as all the millions of things I do, wrestling has been a part of my life. The WWE has been a part of my life since early memories of my childhood. And if
Earth.
there's ever a show I wanted to do, it's with you two, because I remember stepping foot into the Sports Hub, young intern, just being quiet, but I forgot what conversation popped off, and it was like, "You're into wrestling in WWE?
Mm-hmm.
So am I." And Felger and Maz would be doing their thing, but we'd have our conversations, and it was always a great time.
Sam, nice to meet you first and foremost on the air, officially acknowledging you. Cool, Sam.
Wow. Wow.
Mike, I acknowledge you as one of my favorite interns.
Appreciate
And
it.
as I said to you before we hit the record button, and I said to you after your internship and during your internship, you do successful with me. I'll do whatever I can to help you out. So thank you for inviting me on for the 99th episode. I'm glad that you're doing better. Double knee surgery is no joke, man. Like,
It sure is.
so you'll be better than ever. I hope.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it a lot.
So Seth freaking Rollins, did you see the vignette he did with Vince?
I did.
Who do you
did.
think the opponent is?
It's got to be Cody.
So this is the problem. I'll stop. It's not my show. It's not my driving force, Mike. I am here to be the guest. Sam, I am here to be the guest. I will follow your lead. My apologies. I'm going to step back now.
No, that's the hottest topic. I mean, I was gonna definitely lead off with a different question, but since that is kind of the hottest topic,
No, lead off with your questions. I'm sorry.
You sure? Oh, we'll get into Seth Rollins and WrestleMania, but since you are a guest here and the spotlight is on you right now, you know, I want to know what really got you into wrestling from early on. What really got you into WWE? What was it that really said, okay, this is something that has my attention?
Okay, so I am a third generation wrestling fan.
Mm.
My mom and dad are wrestling fans, or they were wrestling fans. I don't think they watch the product right now. They listen to the podcast just as a courtesy to me. And then my grandmother and my grandfather on my mom's side were wrestling fans. They used to go to the roller derby, the matches at the Garden. My mom and dad used to go. My aunt, my mom's sister, who is no longer with us, she used to go with my mom. They got all excited because Bruno Sammartino used to ride the green line to and from the matches.
Wow.
Victor Rivera was a favorite of my aunt. My aunt's favorite wrestler was The Undertaker. In a more modern way. My mom hated Ric Flair. My mom called the Hulk Hogan turn at Bash at the Beach 96. So wrestling is just kind of like in the blood. My first experience with wrestling was WrestleMania 3, which is such a cliche of the biggest WrestleMania ever. But the truth of the matter was my mom and dad couldn't find a babysitter for me. So 6-7-year-old Jimmy Stewart, had to go to what is now, it was called Walter Brown Arena down at Boston University. Now, of course, the big Agganis Arena is the hockey arena for Boston University hockey. And they used to do closed circuit telecasts. So my first wrestling event was WrestleMania 3 closed circuit at Walter Brown Arena. And I fell in love with it instantly. A little Hulkamaniac, Ricky Steamboat, whole 9 yards. And that was the start of my wrestling fandom, was being at Walter Brown Arena watching WrestleMania 3 on the big screen with mom and dad. And then it branched off to everything.
Okay.
And I'm 41 now. I haven't kicked the wrestling habit, and thankfully God has blessed me with the ability to make money doing a podcast. And it's nice that people care of what I have to say, but at the end of the day, I'm just a person. I come into the world the same way I go out of the world. It's just somebody pays me to talk into a microphone about sports and wrestling and all that stuff. And God bless you for it if you care about my opinion, whether you like it or you hate it. But that is the synopsis of my wrestling origins.
Okay.
Satisfactory answer for you, or do you need more?
No, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
How do you do better than saying your first wrestling experience was a WrestleMania?
Yep.
That sounds like destiny to me. I'm quite jealous, actually.
And I'm going to the one this weekend in Dallas.
Yeah,
I fly out Thursday morning. Come back Monday. The most stupendous WrestleMania of all time.
Supposedly.
It's another question I definitely want to get into. And yeah, that everybody has their origin story of how they got into wrestling. I'm sure Sam can get into his. Mine's nothing crazy. And, my dad and my older brother were watching it, and I'm just a little guy growing up. And hey, it's on the TV. Let me sit down and watch with you guys. And then I was just hooked, following my older brother and my father, who were already watching.
Who are your guys? Who are your favorites?
Whew.
This is gonna be good.
Go ahead, Sam. Who do you got? Who do you got that was early on that really caught your attention?
So I fell in love with it because my dad and my older sister used to watch it. So I used to stay up and watch it with them. And they were really big fans of The Undertaker because, for a long time, that storyline, it just felt so real. So, we used to watch wrestling and we used to turn all the lights off and just wait for the Undertaker to come out. And it would just feel like the whole room was up in smoke. And it was like his entrance was like the eeriest 3 minutes of your life.
Yeah.
Every time he came out. So I would say my earliest memories of watching wrestling would be, watching and waiting for the Undertaker to come out and being a young kid and being, scared shitless, honestly. So
oh wait, I can curse on this thing? Oh,
yeah.
excellent.
Yeah, we're open.
yeah, we should have led with that.
And the thing with Sam's story is I was the complete opposite. And I'm a little younger than Sam, but every time the Undertaker would come out and the lights would go off in the arena, I saw that on TV, I'm gone. I was out of there. And I would ask my brother and father, let me know when the lights are back on and the entrance is done. I'll watch him wrestle. I mean, I was still scared, but I don't want to see or hear that music and watch him walking down the ramp. It was not popping for me. I did not want to be a part of that at all. So,
and now as adults, question, quotation fingers, adults.
Yeah.
Isn't the Undertaker entrance like the coolest one?
Oh my
Absolutely.
goodness!
Like they're like the entrance that Taker had at WrestleMania 28 Miami, which was my first WrestleMania. I didn't get to the one in Boston because didn't have the funds.
Mm-hmm.
That was the coolest entrance. Like I had goosebumps on it, and I know I filmed it at some point. But that one, the one in New Orleans at 34, WrestleMania 34, where he routed John Cena, those are the coolest Undertaker entrances I've ever seen. And that's biased because I was there.
Yeah.
So, but Undertaker, is Undertaker the greatest creation of Vince McMahon?
Gimmick?
Yeah. Are we talking about as a gimmick or because
gimmick. He created the Undertaker. He called Mark Calloway. Am I talking to the Undertaker, pal?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Am I talking to the Undertaker, pal? Yes, sir, Mr. McMahon. Okay, we'll see you in Stanford.
Evil. I just saw that conversation. He had no idea what he was talking about, but he was just so happy to get a call. Sure, I'm the Undertaker. How can I help you?
GD, pal, am I talking to the Undertaker?
Yeah, that's gimmick wise, Undertaker really. And I love when he tells the story of how he had to change throughout the Attitude Era, because if you think about it and how the Attitude Era progressed, like obviously when he first came out as the Dead Man, it was great those early years. But like he always talks about in different interviews, him changing during the time. And me personally, I wasn't the biggest American Badass fan. It just wasn't hitting for me. Like I was just so used to the Dead Man. And I understand he wanted to change with the times, and it was probably for the best, because the way the business was rolling, him walking out to the ring silent, not talking too much, like it probably wasn't going to work. Were people still going to love him, but he probably wasn't going to be the same type of guy who was pushed to the top like he was in previous years. So I understand the change. I wasn't a big fan of the change, but I get it. But I'm also happy that after a while he reverted back. And I really think I forgot what WrestleMania was where he faced Kane, and that whole storyline building up to his return.
So it was 14, there was 20.
WrestleMania
same
20 WrestleMania where
Garden.
Yeah, 20 when Paul Bearer came back with him.
Yep.
I thought that build up and what they were doing on Monday Night Raw with Kane and I thought that build up was beautiful as a way to leading back to him reverting back to that persona of being the Dead Man. I thought they did that a very job well done with him returning. But to go back to your original question, which is also leading into another question I had.
I'll stop that, by the way. I'll stop trying to stir the conversation.
Undertaker was somebody who I caught on to, obviously, as a young man, but I can't lie. Razor Ramon was the gimmick that really brought me in, like, yo, I like this bad guy. His swagger, the toothpick, his entrance music to me is one of my favorites of all time. Just nothing crazy, nothing wild. Just he walked out smooth and cool. And Razor Ramon was my guy who really was like, okay, I could get behind this character. And that's before Austin turned into Austin and The Rock and different things. Razor Ramon really, pulled me in. So I definitely want to ask about your feelings on the passing of Scott Hall and what he meant to the business, the NWO, everything that Scott Hall meant to wrestling fans. What's your thoughts and feelings on him?
Scott Hall made things cool, going from Razor Ramon and then to being Scott Hall in WCW. Like everything that he did had some type of meaning, and just like he's 6'8", he's 280, and he just oozes machismo, as his promos once said. There was something about him that was just like cool. And in words of Diamond Dallas Page and Kevin Nash and Jake Roberts and all these people who have said positive things, Matt Hardy had the tweet that stood out to me about the time that Matt and Jeff talked to Scott Hall, and it was backstage, and the advice Scott Hall gave to the Hardys was, it's wrestling business, not wrestling friends. So make sure that you're smart with your money and make sure that you're over at home, meaning you have good relationships at home. And I think that kind of symbolized how Scott Hall felt. Was Scott Hall might be the greatest wrestler never to be the world champion. There's an argument there for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the impression in the fact that Scott Hall only had a handful of matches for the world championship that he actually believed that he didn't need the world championship because he was filling his bank account. He was helping other wrestlers be successful. He was innovative in going from WWF to WCW and making it important, but also like when he comes out, makes his debut on WCW, says, "You know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here." The business side of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash was they got contracts, and they weren't the first to get guaranteed contracts, but what they were the first to do was get what's called a favored nations clause, so that they come in at X amount, and if WCW signs somebody else for $1 more than them, their contract bumps up to $2 more.
Whoa!
So they get $1 more than the highest paid person, other than like Hulk. I think it was. There was an exception in there somewhere.
Wow.
But that's the business side of, look, I don't need your championship belt. I just want to make sure that I'm making money, I'm staying healthy. And he had his issues, and he probably lasted a lot longer on this earth than he maybe should have. But we all have a purpose here. And he got a second chance, and I think he did well with his second chance. And it's heartbreaking that the story that Diamond Dallas Page told was they hadn't heard from Scott Hall in a few days. And so Dallas went over to his house, and Scott Hall was on the ground, and he had been on the ground for a few days, and he couldn't reach a phone or anything like that. And he broke his hip, and he had multiple heart attacks, and he passed away. And it's sad that he went out like that. Like nobody should have to suffer like that. But his impact on the business was great. Like he impacted so many. You just saw the tributes to Scott Hall, and so impactful both on camera and behind the camera. And that's how I remember Scott Hall. Like one of the things, dorky me going to all these events in Dallas, I'm like, I'm going to wear a Scott Hall t-shirt one day. And I have a Scott Hall that has the outline. It says, "Hey, yo," and it says the bad guy on it. And I'm going to wear that one of the days that I'm in Dallas, because I think that people will pop for it. My only meeting with Scott Hall was at WrestleCon in Orlando, WrestleMania 33. And I wore a Bobby Heenan shirt and took a picture with Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Shawn Michaels, and X-Pac. And it's not the best photo in the world because I'm a little awkward, because I'm generally awkward. And I'm trying to like fit in between four dudes and make sure that I have the right pose and my posture is decent. And it wasn't a very flattering photo of me, but it was still cool. And Scott Hall asked me, he's like, how's Bobby? Have you seen Bobby Heenan around here? Because I had the Bobby Heenan shirt on. He's over. He's still working gimmick tables. And Bobby had just been wheeled out by his wife, and the crowd cheered Bobby Heenan because it's Bobby Heenan, right? And so he gave them the bird. He flipped them all off the finger, and then we booed because that's what he wanted us to do, right? And it was funny, but he asked how Bobby was doing, and I told him that story. But he seemed generally interested. And the connection with Scott Hall and Bobby Heenan is, although DDP recently told this story differently, the story that had been out there for a long time was Bobby Heenan was the one who told Scott Hall as Razor Ramon to throw the toothpick into the camera.
Oh,
Don't just throw it here or there. Throw it into the television camera. And that story had been credited to Bobby Heenan for a long time, and now DDP takes credit for it. So I don't know whether it's the Diamond Stud in WCW who started it up. I could go back and look, or whether it was actually Bobby Heenan who told Razor Ramon, "Hey, throw it right into the camera." Right. So that's the connection with Bobby Heenan and Scott Hall.
Okay.
it kind of feels like Scott Hall has a story.
That's a long answer. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
No.
Hey, you told some stuff that I don't think I knew or Sam knew. So
There's one other Scott Hall piece of information that I found out in the Wrestling Observer was because Dave Meltzer and I crap on Dave Meltzer all the time because, some of his stuff was made up, some of it he's lied to, and then every once in a while he gets something right.
yeah.
But in his obituary for Scott Hall, like he writes great obituaries. And one of the stories that X-Pac, Sean Walkman, told to Dave Meltzer was when he was on TV doing a Superstars match against a guy that nobody will ever remember, he would sit in a rest hold or a chin lock. I'm sorry, I shouldn't call it a rest hold, but it's a rest hold. He would sit in a move where he'd sit there in a chin lock, and it would give the announcers a chance to tell the Scott Hall Razor Ramon story. It wasn't just like, here's 5 minutes of Scott Hall just beating up the guy that you're not supposed to remember.
Mhm.
Scott Hall would grab a hold and then let the announcers tell the story of Razor Ramon or Scott Hall. I'm done now.
Wow. I feel like Scott Hall has a story like that with everyone. Everyone who was tweeting and posting all weekend, it seems like they had a personal connection with Scott Hall personally touched not only their professional wrestling careers, but their lives in general. That's why I think, his passing shook up the wrestling world so much because you didn't just lose a wrestler, you lost a good man that portrayed being a bad guy so well.
Yeah.
Scott Hall was cool. Scott Hall was cool.
He was a cool
Well,
guy.
He always reminded me of Scarface.
That persona, man, he killed it. That
point.
Razor Ramon.
That was the
And
point.
like I watched his documentary on on
Peacock.
WWE Peacock. Yeah. And like
Get out your peacock.
seeing who he was before he became Razor Ramon, and like he was just a generic guy, mustache and the hair, like no real kind of person. He was a big guy, but no real type of personality. And the fact that he went from that and flipped into this Razor Ramon character, and the story about how he sold it to Vince, and Vince didn't even know about Scarface or saw the movie, like it's just crazy. But he took that character, he made it his own, and he did a hell of a job with it. So like I was saying before, that Razor Ramon gimmick really is what brought me in and said, okay, I like this guy, I like what he's doing, and then it just opened the door for me to get caught up with everything wrestling wise. But as we talk about Scott Hall, and rest in peace, praise to his family and friends and whatnot, it brings another conversation with the Clique. And you got another guy who's a part of the Clique, a great friend of Scott Hall, who's also been in the news recently, talking about his health issues, and that's Triple H. And a question I definitely want to bring up to you guys that I had in mind was, Triple H's, thankfully his health scare is somewhat over. He did reveal that he's, retiring from in-ring performing, but obviously he's still a part of the business. What I'm curious about is, in a sense, NXT was somewhat taken away from Triple H. And,
Sure was.
Vince McMahon and those guys wanted to go in a completely different direction that is separate from Triple H's baby, in a sense. Like he put a lot of work into NXT, but he's still a part of the business in some way, shape, or form. But now that he's back and somewhat healthy, and I guess really just focusing on being the guy in the suit, what does the future necessarily hold for Triple H or Paul? He's probably going by Paul now. What does the future necessarily hold? Because he was so deep into NXT, but that's not really his anymore. Is he still maybe the guy who's going to take over for Vince McMahon one day down the line? What does the future hold for Triple H right now in the company?
In my opinion, I think he's a consultant. So his input is welcome, but I don't know necessarily that it has the influence that it once did. You go from running your own company essentially with NXT, and now it's Shawn Michaels and Bruce Pritchard and Johnny Ace who are really running NXT 2.0 right now. So I think Triple H is there as a sounding board. I think he's there for advice. I think just Triple H is just kind of there if he's needed. I had heard and reported on the Wrestling Inside the Ropes podcast that Triple H may take a job with one of these networks like Amazon or Peacock and just take a desk job. Or he may just at some point just retire, and you'll never see Triple H will be bringing his daughters to the bus stop, and that's all you'll see of Triple H.
Wow.
And this was a few months ago. Because he can't work. He probably really shouldn't travel that much. Because as he said, he doesn't want to get buzzed in the ring because his heart's out of rhythm. And he's just got to have a really low, stressful life the rest of the way. And to run WWE, look at Vince. Vince is 70-something years old, and he's still going. And God bless him for that. His mother passed away this week. She got to 100.
Oh, wow.
And she was still active. She was still actively playing tennis. Vince's brother just died recently this year, and he got into his 70s as well. So Vince is going to keep going until somebody tells him he can't go anymore. And he strict diet, workouts, all that stuff. So I don't think we'll see. I think WWE almost sold the Fox a few years ago.
I heard those rumors. I heard they were getting ready to do that.
I read about all that stuff online. So if it's on the internet, it's got to be partially true, right? But I think Vince will be in charge of WWE until he's on his deathbed. And where that leaves Hunter was Hunter got to run his Super Indie. He got to run NXT. He did well. I've got posters on my wall of events that Triple H was the owner, quote unquote, of that company. I've got great memories of sitting front row for these events, and just Triple H did such a great job as far as like booking talent and continuing stories and giving undersized wrestlers a platform to be WWE superstars. And it was more about, with NXT, it was more about the story and the performance in the ring on this bigger stage that you could only see with like Ring of Honor. And he gave more people a bigger platform, like New Japan, Ring of Honor. They all kind of merged into NXT, whether it was by choice, obviously by choice of the wrestler, and Triple H gave him that forum to be that springboard into WWE. And I think the turnover was the turnover from Triple H's vision of NXT, which was a super indie, to Vince's vision of what NXT should be, which is a developmental. So if Braun Breaker has Bruce Pritchard's eyes, and Bruce Pritchard is the creative eyes of Vince, if Bruce comes up with, well, let's call Rick Steiner's kid Braun Breaker, Bruce now can go to Vince and be like, we own the name, we own the music, this is what he's doing, this is how I have helped him in your vision, and now we can just call him up, and there's no like, oh my God, they just took Pete Dunne and they're calling him Butch now. They just took Walter and they're calling him Gunther now, right? Because it's already Vince and Bruce are kind of aligned with creative, and you're not taking, I think the most absurd transition of a character is Goldberg. You now put a wig on Goldberg from years ago because you're having him in the same locker room as Goldust, and you're trying to make people laugh around Goldberg. Well, that's not Goldberg's strength. Goldberg's strength is to go into the ring and just maul people.
Yep.
So what they've done with NXT 2.0 is they're streamlining. Vince's vision of sports entertainment wrestling is Bruce's vision, and Bruce is overseeing all of that and making sure that like Braun Breaker is ready for the Raw roster, and we're not going from Rick Steiner Jr. to Braun Breaker and getting this outrage. Like, he's Braun Breaker.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Triple H and Vince kind of differed on their ideas for NXT. It was successful by Triple H. So that's a very. I'll stop with the long-winded answers.
No, please keep going. Personally, personally, I
It's
really,
not my show. It's your show.
Go
I,
ahead, Sam.
I really feel like as soon as Triple H wasn't running NXT, it was ruined. This NXT 2.0 stuff, it is not for me because it ruined everything that was great about NXT. Like it wasn't as flashy as Raw and SmackDown. It was really just about the wrestling. Like, and you remember, Mike, I told you a couple of years ago because there was a time when Raw and SmackDown kind of plateaued, and viewership wasn't as high as it used to be. And I told Mike, I said NXT is the best show out of all three of them.
Because it was.
It
It was also only an hour a week, and then it went to 2 hours a week, and it was a lot, but it was okay. So here's my question to you. So you say it's not the same. What about it do you not like? Because I'm still seeing a lot of like Carmelo Hayes is amazing.
Well, I like
And
Carmelo.
there's not a nicer person than Carmelo Hayes. He was great. He worked Chaotic Wrestling locally, Northeast Wrestling. He's a local guy. And I'm biased because I like him because I'm friendly with him.
No, I know Carmelo's story, and I like him a lot too. But what worries me now is I haven't seen a successful transition from NXT to the main roster since Triple H's um, hands were taken off the product. That streamline from NXT to the main roster used to be automatic. The Sasha Banks, the Charlotte Flairs, the Becky Lynches, the Ricochets, all of that was flawless. They got brought up at the perfect time, and they flowed right into the main roster, and they became instant superstars. And then next thing you know, you have people like Keith Lee, who was a double champion in NXT, who was supposed to be someone else, supposed to take WWE into the next level, into the future. The man spends like 10 days on the main roster. He becomes Bearcat. I think he has one or two matches on national television, and then he gets released. Same thing with Karrion Kross. You remember, Mike?
Yeah.
I used to talk about Karrion Kross every week because I thought he was the next. I really not to bite off of Brock Lesnar's old thing, but I thought he was the next big thing. I was like, he has everything. He's a great in-ring talent. The gimmick is cool. He has the hot blonde. Like he was
smoke
really
show.
good.
She's a smoke show.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's her character, by the way. Don't cancel me for calling a woman beautiful.
No,
She literally promotes herself as a smoke show. So I'm staying with that.
Scarlett is gorgeous. I was sold on Karrion. And then
Yeah.
they brought him up to Raw, and when in NXT he was unstoppable. You brought him to Raw, he couldn't win a match. And then you brought up Karrion, but you didn't bring up Scarlett. So that cuts the gimmick in half, which made no sense to me. And then next thing you know, he's released. So I'm like,
Sam, and what you guys did literally is leading into exactly what I wanted to bring up next that I was going to have pop up at the bottom of the screen. But WWE's released a lot of guys that, and I know in Sam's opinion, probably in yours too, Jim, they dropped the ball with. Sam named Karrion Kross, Keith Lee. Hit Row still kills me. I don't know how you
Hit Row was great. Yeah.
I don't know how you just release Hit Row, but what's your thoughts and feelings on the different guys or girls that, had maybe a solid run in NXT and WWE just dropped the ball with them? What's some of your thoughts and feelings
So
on that?
Bryan Danielson once described this in an interview to me years ago. He did Toucher and Rich, and I was lucky enough to be involved in the conversation. I asked him, what's the difference between pro wrestling and sports entertainment? And he gave me a great answer. And essentially what it is sports entertainment is more Hollywood stuff. So Vince has this vision for characters. And so he saw Karrion Kross wearing a helmet. He saw Keith Lee be Bearcat and give him some marketing behind him. Vince is 76 years old. He thought that he thought that Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins should have a feud against each other with a gas mask. Like he is looking for, he's trying to sell merchandise. He's trying to get the person with the clicker to stop and be like, what's this? So he is thinking, so in the world right now, we have narrow casting, right? We have podcasts, we have narrow casting. There used to be broadcasting when there was only 6 stations and you had to use rabbit ears, right? Now we have 500 channels, we have gazillion podcasts. So we're all narrow casters now. Vince is still in that broadcaster's mindset of trying to get the person to stop with the clicker. So if Vince doesn't see anything in you, you got no shot. But if he looks at, and I just use Braun Breaker because he profiles as like something that Vince should love.
Mm-hmm.
If you get Braun Breaker, he's 6'4", he's 280, he's built like a brick house, and a brick house. That's the double. So like that's what you're going against. He didn't see anything in Keith Lee, and Keith Lee they put in the ring with Brock Lesnar in the Royal Rumble. They put him at the end with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series. So like they booked him properly.
Mm-hmm.
Also keep in mind, Finn Balor goes from NXT to the Universal Championship and is the first Universal Champion. Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, when he wasn't working for WWE, called him the little guy, the tiny guy. So right there, like Vince is against his will putting a new championship on Finn Balor because I think Triple H was getting a little bit of power. And then that Universal Championship went to Kevin Owens. And Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho had the best story going into WrestleMania 33. And it's the second match on the show. And it's no longer for the Universal Championship. It's for the U.S. Championship. So because you had to do Brock Lesnar and Goldberg,
Mm-hmm.
which was a wonderful match, but it didn't need the Universal Championship. It didn't need it. It was fine as is, but it was going to be Goldberg's last match until they re-signed him. So Vince has it in his mind that he's still looking for that airport guy. He's still looking for that special talent, that the talent that he sees. So that's a long way of, yeah, WWE has dropped the ball with a lot of talent, but what talent has been released that has really hurt him?
That's a good
right?
freaking question.
CM Punk was fired back in 2014 by Triple H. He was off TV for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's back in AEW, and he's selling merchandise. He's responsible for YouTube. He's having good matches. He's having good promos. But has CM Punk's departure really hurt the WWE? It hasn't.
No, you're right.
Has Bryan Danielson choosing to leave WWE and going to AEW, has that hurt WWE?
Well, in my opinion, I don't think it's more or less one superstar. I think it's the collective. I think it's the amount of talent, because most of that talent streamlined right into AEW. You hand fed.
Has Adam Cole hurt WWE?
Absolutely not.
But I think so. Now my question is, with all the talent that you released, you're putting more pressure on the talent that you've kept, and that brings repetitiveness. Like this Brock and Roman thing, I fear we're gonna see it. It's gonna be force fed to us for like the next decade, because who else can Vince really rely on for a grandiose main event? Like I feel like all the other talent that had a future, that could have put bodies in the seats, he let go because he was narrow-minded. And now
one of the biggest problems in sports right now is not just wrestling, but sports, is Tom Brady is a unicorn. Tom Brady is special. Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback to ever play the game.
Yep.
Tom Brady is viewed as just an asset, like just a poker chip, just a stock. And that's wrong, because we're humans. Like, we're not looked at as assets. So Vince looks at it and says, John Cena is a star, Roman Reigns is a star, Brock Lesnar is a star. And the corporate sponsors, the TV networks, also see Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar as stars. They see Ronda Rousey as a star. They see Charlotte Flair as a star. So because the business of sports and the business of wrestling is mostly Fox, USA, Peacock Network, who their WWE is about to sell their merchandising rights to Fanatics. What else? There was another. They just sold their autograph gimmick to Fitterman Sports, whatever it is.
Mhm.
So WWE is selling off all of these pieces of their assets because Mike and Sam and James were not spending enough money on their product. So these corporations come in, and because they're spending $1 billion from Fox, $1 billion from USA, 30 million for NXT, the autographs, this, that, and the other thing, that's where WWE's money is coming from. So that's who they're listening to. And so the butt every 18 inches at the live arena, that number continues to go down. So, I mean, WrestleMania is supposed to have 200,000 people. They're just over 60,000 for night one. They're just under 60,000 for night two.
Sheesh.
So when you're booking your territory, are you going to listen to the 60,000 who actually paid to see the show? Or are you going to pay Peacock? Or are you going to listen to the Peacock executive who is paying $1 billion over 5 years to streamline your service?
It's crazy. It's really crazy to think about.
And that's how these sports teams are now operating. Nesson, yeah, we go to the Red Sox, right?
Yep.
The Red Sox aren't building a team for Mike, Sam, and James. They're building a team that they can sell and get advertising dollars from Nesson, because the price to go to the ballpark and the merchandising money just doesn't equal the TV money that's out there. And that sucks. But most of us have invested in a large size TV. We pay our cable internet bills every month. And
Sure do.
would I rather go to Fenway Park and have to fight with the guy who's 6 beers in to use the men's room? Or can I watch the game on my big screen TV and then I can pause the game, go to the men's room, do my business, get the chips or the chips and dip from the kitchen, and I go back and I unpause the game.
Simple.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. You're making valid points.
I know. I hate it.
No. We love it here. We absolutely love it here.
The thing with WWE is, though, okay, so I understand we're selling off pieces because we want the revenue that these corporations are willing to shell out to us, right? But WWE in their heyday was doing so well that they didn't need to do that. So couldn't this all be because Vince is out of touch with what we want to see? So that's why viewership and merchandise sales and everything has depleted. So I feel like, Vince became his own worst enemy. Him only having tunnel vision for such a short list of people to become superstars. I mean, well, if we're going to see Roman Reigns every night, if we're going to see Brock, well, he hasn't been an every night wrestler in like 15 years, but
Brock's been on the show once a week for the last.
He has been pretty active.
He's been around a lot.
New Cowboy Brock is different because Cowboy Brock is rich and he's having fun,
Yep.
So he wants to come to work now. But Beast Incarnate Suplex City Brock, he wasn't coming to work if he didn't have to, because Vince was so hell bent on making sure he didn't lose Brock that Brock got to do whatever he wanted.
Yep.
And
Ronda, look at Ronda. Ronda no show to Raw on Monday.
I did read that today. I actually read that she's supposed to have a match.
For those, yeah, they promoted Ronda and Bianca Belair against Becky and Charlotte, and I'm like, I cracked my knuckles. I'm like, okay, let's tune in to see what happens here.
Yeah.
And then Ronda on her Facebook game streaming channel was like, yeah, I didn't get travel for that. I'm not booked. I'm not showing up. So she didn't show up for that. She showed up on the Ellen show today, which was nice. That's an NBC partnership. I assume that she'll be on SmackDown on Friday because it'll be in Dallas.
It's a must.
But it brings up the question, like, they wanted Ronda Rousey back for WrestleMania because they have 200,000 seats to sell. They brought Ronda back, and I don't think her run's been very good.
Nope.
I think her promos are
horrible.
Have not been good.
They're
I think
horrible.
the story with Charlotte should have been better. And I have concerns that Ronda's going to get booed out of the building if she wins the title. And the fans might cheer Charlotte because she's there every week. She's putting in the work, and she's trying to get booed. And Charlotte will make the match good because that's how talented she is. And I'm biased. I'm a Charlotte honk, good or bad.
Oh, we know.
Yeah.
Anyone that follows you on Twitter,
We
Oh,
see
we
it.
know.
We see it.
But that's one of the great questions is that smarter audience going to turn on Ronda, boo her out of the building and cheer Charlotte? And then it's like, well, Charlotte's got to retain now, I think. But to get back to where we started this whole conversation about talent that has been dropped, the WWE has dropped the ball on talent. They have, but that in a lot of ways, that's because Vince doesn't see a vision for them being the headline attraction for WrestleMania, because it's not mainstream enough. I think that's just an opinion. Is Vince has to see that superstar quality in you, and there are people who he just doesn't see it in.
Yeah, that's definitely been Vince's MO for a while now. If he doesn't see anything in you, he's gonna toss you to the side. And within recent years, him tossing to the side is no longer just burying you on the card. They're just gonna flat out cut your ass and release you. And as we've definitely been seeing, all of these guys, or most of these guys, have been transitioning right over to AEW.
Yeah.
And as much as you say, hey, Vince doesn't see these guys as stars, Vince doesn't see them headlining WrestleMania or anything, Daniel Bryan still has a following. CM Punk still has a following. Adam Cole, he had his little following from NXT. Jeff Hardy's still a big guy.
The Hardys are huge.
Yeah, the Hardys are huge.
The Hardys are huge.
That's the pop they got for their reunion.
Yeah. So, AEW's been around for a couple years now. Are they, or will they ever be, as they continue to somewhat steal talent away and have these guys who may not be big in WWE's eyes, but still have a decent following? Will they ever be somewhat of a threat? Are they a threat now? Will they ever be a threat? Is WWE even, I know people are going to say that if Cody Rhodes does show up, that's kind of one kick that they're kind of giving to AEW, but is a threat even there when we talk about this company?
So there are two answers in categories. They're different answers.
I want them all.
Category A is, will AEW beat WWE in TV ratings?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is yes, they will. They have in certain demographics on certain nights. They've already done that. The second topic is business. And I don't think AEW right now can beat WWE in business. And WWE is this global brand.
Yeah.
So they make $50 million from one trip to Saudi Arabia. So for 72 hours, they get $50 million to put up their circus tent, entertain the Saudi prince, and then they go on their way. AEW's TNT deal is for less than $50 million for the year. So from a business standpoint, AEW right now won't be a threat to WWE. But in the ratings war and on YouTube videos and stuff like that, yeah, they can beat WWE. From an actual buzz standpoint, I feel like there's more buzz about AEW stuff than there is WWE stuff. But that also varies week to week. So CM Punk does this great promo against Eddie Kingston, or Chris Jericho does this great promo against Eddie Kingston, or CM Punk has this great thing with MJF. That's the buzz of the internet. Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns, there's not a lot of buzz for night 2, but stuff that Kevin Owens does for Steve Austin, there's buzz there.
Yeah.
It's all really the only thing that I can grasp onto is what I see on social media and the internet. But the internet isn't indicative of what the person in Topeka, Kansas feels, or the person in middle of nowhere, Portland, Oregon isn't the middle of nowhere, but Portland, Oregon, isn't the wrestling hotbeds are Boston, Chicago, certain places in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania,
New York,
New York, parts of Texas. Those are kind of the wrestling hotbeds.
Yeah.
But tell me what the person in New Orleans, Louisiana thinks that's not a WrestleMania crowd member, right? That's what they're balancing. Tell me what the international fan thinks. And that gives you a better idea, because there's some people who don't care about AEW. They're just WWE fans. There are people who are just AEW fans that don't care about WWE, but that crossover is less. Mike, you had your finger up for a follow-up question.
I had my finger up saying that there's guys who just follow WWE and don't give a damn about what AEW. I'm one of those guys. I'm one of those guys for sure.
And the important thing, Mike and Sam, is there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer to what wrestling means to you and who your favorites are. You can watch both. You can watch neither.
Yeah.
You could be a New Japan Pro Wrestling fan. You could be an Impact Wrestling fan. You could like Game Changer Wrestling. There's enough wrestling out there for everybody.
Yeah.
And if WWE isn't your thing, you have AEW. If AEW isn't your thing, there's Impact. There's Game Changer Wrestling. I think right now, wrestling is about following the character that you're most interested in. And so if it's Roman Reigns, you're going to tune into what Roman Reigns is doing. And because so many people are streaming and have DVR service, that I'm going to read the results and see that Roman Reigns is the last segment of SmackDown. So you know what? I'm just going to watch that SmackDown segment, and I'm going to watch it on Saturday morning. Because I think AEW is the only show that's must watch on Wednesday nights. I think SmackDown I think there was a time where it was AEW on Wednesday and SmackDown on Friday. And those are the shows that I have to watch. I don't feel that way about SmackDown anymore. I think AEW is the only show that I feel like I need to watch live.
Okay.
Yep. It's being taped right now as we speak. You know, that's just how it. I've been trying to tell Mike. I said, please watch AEW because there's something special there. Because I feel like AEW took the WCW model and they tweaked it enough to make it because WCW, it took a little while for them to become hip. You know, they were around for a while, but they didn't really become competition to WWF at the time until they started to bring over some major stars from the WWF. You know, like those Monday Night Wars weren't really wars until the NWO blew up, till Hogan's classic turn, you know, things of that nature. And then, you know, you had Macho Man come over, you had X-Pac come over. So AEW, it's Chris Jericho is one of the pillars.
Yep.
One of the greatest WWE stars of all time. He's one of the pillars. At that interview outside of Daly's place in Jacksonville, he was right there center stage and put all his chips into AEW. So he gave it early legitimacy right off the bat. And then AEW grabbed some of the biggest names in pro wrestling that people who only follow wrestling through WWE would have never heard of. But if you follow the indie circuit, if you watch New Japan Pro Wrestling or Impact, you've heard of the Young Bucks. You've heard of Kenny Omega. You've heard of MJF. You've heard of Britt Baker. But if you just
DMD, sorry,
I
just got to say her. Put some respect on her name. She's a pillar of AEW.
Absolutely, she went.
Dr. Britt Baker. Say it with me, Sam. Dr. Britt Baker. DMD.
I'll leave that to y'all.
You'll be doing it too, Mike.
But this is what I say. This is what I would say is, Mike, if AEW, which is ECW with a budget, if you remember Extreme Championship Wrestling from the late 90s, that's all it is Tony Khan loved ECW and now he's doing it because there's so much blood and guts. But there's a lot more blood that WCW couldn't do, and that's what AEW really is. But Mike, if AEW isn't your style, it's not what you're feeling as a wrestling fan, that's okay. Like that's, again, it's everybody has different preferences. And if you just want to see Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, or Charlotte and Ronda, or Becky and Bianca Belair, or the Street Profits and RK Bro and the Chad Gable, Otis,
Alpha Academy.
Yep. Like if that's your thing, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. There's no reason. But like, there's no reason why you can't watch it all or watch, just what you want to watch. That's the beauty of wrestling.
Beauty of wrestling and the beauty of YouTube, because if I hear that AEW has a segment that is wild, I will definitely YouTube it and see what happens. Sam is always trying to tell me tune in, so once in a while I'll pull it up on YouTube and see what segments are hot. But
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely want to transition into WrestleMania 38 coming up.
Sure.
Definitely want to transition into this upcoming weekend, this 2-night event, and there's a lot of questions I want to ask. But before we jump into the event, I want to get this out the way because I've been battling it with this question myself, so I want to get both of your opinions. Roman Reigns has been doing amazing work for a while now. You know, people damn near say he's helped elevate the company a little bit since he's returned. And as great as he's been, you know, with this whole tribal tree, you know, persona and whatnot, turned
Acknowledge
into a
him,
bad
Mike.
guy. I acknowledge this guy. He's been doing great. Has he officially cracked that, like, okay, Stone Cold, Rock, John Cena, Hulk Hogan, has he officially moved from just like, because let's be honest, I just named some guys who like you can easily throw on a Mount Rushmore, but then you got the second tier guys who will be WWE legends like an Edge, like Edge type level guys. If you
Here, Mike, I'll clean it up for you. Here's your franchise players. It's Bruno Sammartino. It's Pedro Morales. It's Hulk Hogan. It's Macho Man. It's Steve Austin. It's The Rock. It's John Cena. I should probably say Triple H.
The Undertaker.
Yeah.
There's Bret Hart. There's Shawn Michaels. There's Roman Reigns. There's Brock Lesnar. Right?
Okay.
That's probably 10, 11, 12 names that I listed there.
Do you have the Undertaker in there too?
Undertaker should be on that list as well.
Okay.
Right?
So you're taking Roman and you're putting him with the likes of those guys you just named. Undertaker.
Roman is no less than top 10. There's an argument for top 5.
Oh, yes.
There's an argument for it.
I like this.
If it's just like my eyes, right, and my lifetime of watching wrestling, that's 87 on.
Mm-hmm.
So Hogan has to be there. There's a debate over Cena has to be there.
I'll give you that, yeah.
So then it's Austin and Rock had runs, but they were short runs.
That is true.
They made a ton of money.
Quick.
So
very quickly, yeah.
Is the variable longevity? Is the variable money made? Because then you're changing the arguments, right? Because if it's just overall like money made, eyes on the product, it's Hogan, Cena, Rock, Austin. That's it. And then you start talking about Taker, Roman, Bret, Shawn. But Bret's run was shorter. Shawn's has a hiccup in it.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about like longevity, there's an argument for Roman. There's an argument for Roman being on that Mount Rushmore. I don't know that I can make that argument right now, but he beats Brock Lesnar. They do something else. Everybody wants The Rock. The Rock might be doing WrestleMania 39, right?
You got to.
The Rock isn't interested in doing that right now. I've reported that. I still think that The Rock shows up at the end of this WrestleMania, at the end of night 2. I think he flies in. They do the stare off. They fade to black for the crowd in Dallas. He gives Roman a rock bottom and, does the pose and everything. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't know that that's going to happen because we're all expecting The Rock.
Eventually, that's the match we all want. The world needs
right. They just
money.
did this evil series on Peacock and they teased like The Rock, right?
I need to watch that episode. I need to watch
it.
It
is amazing. That show, that miniseries is chef.
So if you look at the list of names that Roman Reigns has beaten, you had Brock Lesnar on Sunday, you had The Rock in a year, and who else? Right? Is Steve Austin versus Roman in play?
I don't think so. But
you got Austin to do one. Who's
Is
to
he
say he's
really
not going to
doing
do
what-
more?
Is this so? That's the thing. Is this WrestleMania thing he's doing? They keep saying it's
We don't
just
know because they don't know.
They won't know till Sunday. I mean, sorry, Saturday.
the man hasn't wrestled in 19 years. He keeps saying he's going to be a guest on the KO show, but every time KO drops a promo, he makes it sound like it's going to be a fight. I
Austin claims he's in some great shape right now.
He is. I mean, look at his Broken Skull session with Lita. Like, he's got guns. Like,
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
he's-
I've got
he's- yeah.
24-inch pythons, but he's got 25-inch pythons. I'm
believe
joking.
me,
I have earthworms.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying.
So to answer the question, is Roman Reigns in the elite status? Yes, he is. The argument is top 5. Maybe at the end of this run, he's higher. But I say he's no lower than 10. He's no higher than 5.
I agree because
That
he
sucks
has.
for radio purposes.
I'm sorry, but his
Don't be
recent
sorry,
work,
it's okay.
this tribal chief work, it's the best. It's the best thing in wrestling,
Yeah,
and it's honestly keeping WWE afloat because for a long time we wanted Cena to turn heel because we just got tired of the all-American good guy shtick. We wanted Cena to turn heel. He never did it. All the great good guys that we love, they had their heel runs. And we wanted Cena to do it, and he never did. And then when Roman started getting booed out of arenas, even though he was a face, we were waiting, and we were waiting, and we were waiting. He would get booed trying to do good guy promos, and we thought, you know what? If this doesn't turn him heel, we give up. The man comes out, says he has leukemia, has to drop the belt. People are sentimental for like 20 minutes. As soon as he comes back and says he's in remission, they cheer for him. His first match back, they boo his ass out the arena again.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, if this doesn't turn him heel, like what else does it take? The minute he turned heel, you can tell he should have been a heel
a
the whole
long
time.
time ago. Yeah,
Believe
It
that.
flows so naturally. He's so good at it because Roman's promos as a heel and Roman's promos as a face,
oh yeah,
they're two different people.
night and day, completely.
They're two different. His promos as a heel are some of the best I've heard in years. The one he dropped on Monday about it always being personal for him,
It's good.
speechless.
Here's what I'll say about Roman, and I agree. This tribal chief run has been great. He's beat a lot of. I mean, throughout the course of his career, he's had a lot of great opponents and beaten a lot of big names. And he's had a lot of great matches during this run as the tribal chief. Low key, I think his best match as this tribal chief was against the Uso in Hell in a Cell. I think that that doesn't get enough credit. Him pinning Edge and Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania was huge.
Stacked him.
But
smashed him and stacked him.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it was against Jey Uso, right? Jey Uso, Hell in a Cell. I think the story there when he cried at the end and ended up making Jimmy that match doesn't get a lot of credit. But as we continue to talk about Roman a little bit, we touched on this a little bit earlier, but I definitely want to get your honest opinions about your thoughts of the repetitiveness of having Brock and Roman fight again at WrestleMania and them calling it the biggest WrestleMania match of all time.
I hate it.
Okay, thank you.
You know what?
Thank you.
You know what? The only reason I don't hate it is because this is a different Roman and a different Brock. If it was face Roman and heel Brock, I wouldn't even watch WrestleMania, to be honest. I'd skip the whole show because I'd throw up seeing it again. But Cowboy Happy Brock and Tribal Chief Roman, that's a fight we haven't seen yet. We've seen them duke it out as their regular personas, their old personas, and all those matches were pretty predictable. I'll tell you right now, I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday. I know what I want to happen. I think it'd be a waste of time for them to have Brock win the belt because no matter what you think, no matter what you want, Brock will never be full time ever.
Oh, yeah, we know.
He'll never be full time. And
We absolutely know that.
if you're gonna combine these belts and make a WWE World Heavyweight Universal all-time greatest ever champion, it's got to be someone that's gonna come to work every week. So I think Roman I think he has to win, but I think Vince is so enamored with keeping gold around Brock's waist that he might be foolish enough to have him win that match, which would be infuriating. But that's the only reason I'm okay with watching them fight again, because it's different personas this time, and the outcome isn't as predictable as those other times they faced off at WrestleMania.
So, Mike and Sam, there's a video element to this, right? Like this goes out. This is a video podcast. Like there's a video element included with this. This is what is going to happen. Yeah, I'm getting the reflection.
I see it.
So I've seen that picture, and it made me happy.
So what the picture is for the people who are listening is it's Roman Reigns standing over Brock Lesnar at Madison Square Garden, and he's holding up the Universal Championship and the WWE Championship. That is the end of WrestleMania.
Clean.
I don't give a damn if it's clean. It just needs to happen.
You think they're gonna have Brock lose clean at WrestleMania?
Clean, 100% clean.
I would be so happy. But the thing is, I
think there's a longer play.
It's the smart play for Roman to win.
What's the long play? What's the long game here?
Well, The Rock next year. Then if Brock loses, nobody else is beating Roman. So you could book that Roman's going to hold the belt till next WrestleMania.
That's crazy. He's not going to hold the belt for another year.
If he beats Brock in the biggest WrestleMania and then he drops it to anyone other than Brock at any other pay-per-view, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. Who's going to take the belt off of the unstoppable tribal chief Roman Reigns if it's not Brock at WrestleMania? Who? Because again,
I think the person who ultimately beat Roman is Drew McIntyre.
That's the guy, huh?
Oh.
And I say that because Roman and Drew have such great respect for each other, and they can get Drew McIntyre hot again once he gets past his neck injuries. Unless they're going to McIntyre after WrestleMania as a Roman Reigns opponent. Beyond that, they don't really have the guy. They don't have the next guy. Unless it's Gabriel Stevenson. But he's at minimum a year away.
The man hasn't had a match yet, have you?
Exactly.
So you could see Roman holding the belt for
another year.
Yeah.
Another year.
Another 3.
Yep.
If he beats Brock, there's another year of tribal chief dominance, because again, it doesn't make any sense.
That's unheard of. That's never no. Has there ever been a run like that?
Yeah.
So
Bruno.
So modern day though. You guys familiar with New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Heard about it, never watched
a little bit.
Okay. So the actual best wrestler in the world is Okada.
That I know.
And he held the IWGP championship for like 900 days. And New Japan has a way different schedule than anything in the States.
Okay.
So he only had like 13 defenses or something like that. It's a relatively low number. I could Google it right now, but I choose not to. But he held that title, and he was the greatest wrestler in the world until Kenny Omega knocked him off of the IWGP Championship in one of the best matches I've ever watched. I would implore people who haven't seen the Okada Kenny Omega trilogy to go out and watch it. Actually, might have been 4 matches now that I think about it.
I've seen one of them.
There's a 30-minute one. There's the initial challenge. There's the one where Omega beats him in the G1. There's the time limit draw, and then there's the 2 out of 3 fall match. So there's 4 matches. They're all worth your time. It's 4 hours of your life if you're a wrestling fan that you should invest in it. You hear 4 hours,
Interesting.
like, whoa, 4 hours. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, you should invest in it. But the point is that you want to go into unprecedented waters, have Roman have the Universal Championship for almost 1,000 days. Like, that's uncharted waters.
I'm
But
okay with that.
The problem is like, realistically, like, look at the roster. Who's on the level of Roman Reigns?
Nobody. There's no one.
Who do they have coming in the pipeline?
No
Braun Breaker.
So Braun Breaker is a perfectly acceptable answer. That's a year away at least.
Yeah.
I swear to God, if I see Braun Breaker with that belt next year.
Now, there's nobody. Now, the honest answer is there's nobody that logically that you can see as, okay, this is the guy that's going to knock Roman off. There's nobody built to do that right now on the current roster.
Because if you think about it, this is a unification bout. So this person's going to be on SmackDown and Raw. You can't have someone wear that belt that can't cut an amazing promo on a weekly basis. I'm sorry.
I don't know if they're keeping it unified after the match.
So my theory is that they're gonna have the photo of Roman holding up the 2 titles.
Okay.
You know, if The Rock comes out, The Rock comes out, and then they fade to black on that. But you've got the image, you've got the poster, you've got the plaque, you've got the merchandise of Roman holding the 2 belts. You've got the footage of it. You go to the next night on Raw, and if you look at the Rumble, Roman looks at that WWE Championship with such disgust that I could see a situation where he's like, you know what? I don't want this one anymore, and just chucks it away. And now you got a tournament. And that's how they get the WWE title off of Roman.
Okay.
Is Roman just chucks it to the ground like, no, I'm good. I don't need this. I'm good. And then Roman can walk around as being the unbeaten, whatever, Universal Champion. Right? And if you want to make a new belt, if you want to turn the blue one into a gold one, God bless. And then you start a tournament for the WWE Championship, and maybe Cody Rhodes ends up winning that one, or Seth Rollins ends up with, whoever. Doesn't at that point matter, because you've still got Survivor Series in Boston where you're going to need a champion versus champion match.
True.
So you could build Cody to that spot. You can build somebody to that spot.
All right.
Well, so then what's the point? What's the point of unifying the belts at all if it's not going to stay?
Marketing.
They're just trying to make the wildest, biggest
Marketing.
match
That's all
possible.
it is.
Just call him a double champ. If anything, just Roman 2 belts or whatever you want to do.
Becky 2 belts wasn't supposed to happen. It was supposed to be Charlotte beating Ronda Rousey, and that was going to be it. And then Becky got hot, but Charlotte still needs to be in the match because Ronda's going away. So we need to be able to say that 2 current members of the roster main evented at WrestleMania, and you needed Charlotte in there for match structure.
Makes sense.
And so that's how that's what I believe is the real reason why Charlotte was the 3rd person in that match, right?
Well,
and they had such a short window of Becky versus Ronda because Ronda was going away. You just wanted the moment of Becky pinning Ronda. And then it's like, oh, she's got 2 belts now because they did a little bit of marketing with Becky 2 belts, and then they got that 2nd belt off her as quickly as they could. And then they transitioned to Bayley, and Bayley went on her run of, if there wasn't an interruption, it would have been a 500-day run with her with the SmackDown Women's Championship.
True. Very dominant.
Okay. So
my voice is starting to fade, guys, just to let you know.
I hear you. I got 2 final questions here. First question is, I personally don't think this is a strong WrestleMania card. I don't know how you 2 feel about it.
I agree with that.
But just looking at some of the matches, we don't have to go through all of them, but some of the hottest matches, predictions that you have, the Stone Cold, Kevin Owens, we kind of just touched on Roman, Brock, but the Cody versus Seth, if that happens, some prediction that you think might pop off, Jimmy, you'll be there. So what are some things that you're expecting to happen?
Okay, so Roman wins both belts. Here Comes the Rock. They do the stare down. They go off the air.
Okay.
I think that there's the possibility that Kevin Owens and Steve Austin shoot an angle on night 1 that leads to a match on night 2.
Okay.
If it's not that, it's KO show and Austin. They close the show. It's a bunch of stunners. It's a bunch of beers. It sends that Dallas crowd home Saturday night happy.
Okay.
If that opens up the show, angle alert, and that's going to lead to an actual match for night 2.
All right.
And the idea is that you're selling more tickets for night 1 because of Steve Austin. You're going to have a walk-up crowd for Saturday night. Maybe you can get more people to watch if the quick turnaround is like, yeah, Steve Austin got beat up on Saturday. Now he's actually going to fight. Now he's actually going to have a match. That could be your turnover there. I think Charlotte is going to retain the SmackDown Women's Championship, and I think it's because Ronda Rousey just has not been good since she came back.
I agree.
And I think that in part is why Steve Austin and Kevin Owens is going to go on last, because the idea, I think, was Ronda Rousey was going to beat Charlotte when they pieced this all together. I think Ronda was going to beat Charlotte, and that was going to close out night 1. And now I don't think that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not feeling or seeing what they're feeling and seeing. But I think Ronda has been a disappointment, and I think Charlotte retains. Because you can have Ronda go away until Money in the Bank. You can bring Ronda back, and then you can go on your way to Ronda and Becky, which is what I think the final destination is next WrestleMania in LA. That's what I think. I would have Becky retain over Bianca Belair.
Whoa.
But I think if WWE is smart, night 1, you open the show with Bianca Belair versus Becky Lynch, and you have Bianca Belair win.
Yep.
Because that's the payoff from the story that you've been telling.
Yes, that has to happen. Yeah.
She needs her revenge.
The worry that I have is that Belair just cut Becky Lynch's hair on Raw on Monday.
I did see that segment.
Very good segment.
And so that worries me that was Bianca's revenge on Becky, and now Becky's going to retain on Saturday night.
Well, hey,
because then if you're building towards Becky and Ronda, a WrestleMania from now, you can say Becky hasn't lost the title in 4 years. So you're walking into WrestleMania in Los Angeles, WrestleMania 39, and you've got Roman who hasn't lost his title in 3 years, and you've got Becky who hasn't lost a match in 4, or something like that.
Damn.
I know I've stumped the panel.
Okay.
I don't want that to happen.
Like I said, the card isn't that great, but
no, there's like 5 matches that are interesting to me, and
yeah.
You know what match is interesting to me now? This Omos and Bobby Lashley match.
I love them both.
I am interested in that. That's 2 behemoths going at it. I welcome that just because it's just going to be a physical match. There's no storyline. There's no gimmicks behind it. Like that, you could just actually enjoy the physicality of the match. I'm looking forward to that.
I could see Omos winning the Royal Rumble next year. Right? Like he's got a unique look to him. Maybe I'm overstating it by thinking that, but they've paired him with AJ Styles for a long time. So, I mean, he's got to learn something from there. He's in the ring with Bobby Lashley, who's a pro. I think Bobby Lashley's run with MVP has just been outstanding.
Oh, yeah. They've killed it.
I don't think they should have broke up the Hurt business, but
I agree with that.
When does Randy Orton turn on Riddle? When is it happening?
When it means something. I think if WWE has this mindset of like, here are the moments. So the moment that they want you to walk away from WrestleMania with is Roman or Brock holding 2 titles. That's what they want you to go away with. If it's not The Rock coming back, they want you to remember Steve Austin's farewell moment, like the last time he's in the ring doing anything. So that's 2. Celebrities. We haven't even talked about the celebrities that are on this show, right?
Johnny Knoxville,
Logan Paul, Pat McAfee.
I tell you
So
what,
those are
I want to
lots
see
of things.
Pat. Pat's the only one I want to see. Pat. Pat looked
right.
like he
So
can
they
fight.
want you to remember the celebrities because that's a reason why some people are tuning in.
Mhm.
Is like, what is this going to do? What is this? You know, this is long time WWE style, right? So, and then you've got Seth Rollins and his mystery opponent. We
Yep.
all think it's Cody Rhodes. What if it's John Cena? What if it's The Undertaker? What if it's...
We don't know. We don't know. We have no idea.
right? But, you know, I'm not as high on Cody being a mainstream draw as a lot of other people are.
I agree.
But that Cody versus Seth is fourth on the moments thing. I think that's my own personal. People disagree with that, and that's great. So now you're at number 5, and that's a Randy Orton Riddle turn. So Randy Orton is smart enough to know why be the 5th most important thing on a WrestleMania. Let's push that back, and we'll do the turn when it means more.
Makes sense. Okay.
Hypothetically, Money in the Bank in Las Vegas. Randy Orton's climbing up to get the briefcase. Here comes Riddle. There's a moment. Riddle hits the RKO on Randy Orton. Or Randy Orton hits the RKO on Riddle. Do whatever you want. It's within the context of the match.
Yeah.
But there's the first teaser of the turn. And then you can progress from there. They're no longer the tag champs. One of them was about to grab the Money in the Bank briefcase. The other one cost them that opportunity. It means more in the context of the Money in the Bank match than it does as the 5th most important thing on WrestleMania.
Okay. I like your take.
I like that.
I have
I'm
one.
I appreciate your kind words.
I have one final question here before we wrap up. I know.
I'm sorry, my voice is fading on me. Otherwise, I'd go another.
No. Honestly, I appreciate we appreciate the time you've given us for sure. It's much appreciated. Last one that I really want to know, and we kind of did Mount Rushmore of guys before when we talked about Roman, but I want your Mount Rushmore of talent on the mic. Who's your Mount Rushmore of talent who can take the mic and really cut a promo?
Active or all time?
All time. All time.
Bobby Heenan won.
Okay.
Could
you
Rowdy
do active
Piper
and
too?
all time or
is it just? Is there anybody affiliated with wrestling in the business, or are you talking about just wrestlers?
Anybody.
Okay.
Oh, I assume it's wrestling. I'll keep it to wrestling because that's the only thing I really know anything about.
No, I just meant
talking about managers and wrestlers
and stuff too, or we just talking about Yep, go ahead.
Bobby Heenan, Rowdy Piper, Hogan. I think you have to talk about MJF in the conversation.
Ooh.
I don't even want to answer this question because it's tough. It's too hard for me.
And here's why I put MJF in the conversation. Because he turned a personal story that actually happened.
That's real. It's
into a way to swerve the crowd. And we all bought it hook, line, and sinker. Right?
Kiss.
All time Mount Rushmore.
So
MJF. Well, you need to see it. His mic work is excellent, but you won't.
So like it. I mean, and it's probably a projection on my part.
It's 24, something like that.
25, yeah,
25.
25.
Okay.
Right. It's probably a projection, but he's doing stuff and he's being allowed to do stuff that nobody else is doing right now. So is it an extreme take? Yeah, probably. It's like the real answer is probably like Heenan, Paul Heyman, Rowdy Piper, Hogan. Because I mean, remember how many people Hogan talked into the building? Like for me, by the way, like Hogan is the all-time greatest professional wrestler, sports entertainer of all time. And it's because in 84, he's in the Rocky movie. He's in Rocky 3. He goes on a great run with WWF as the #1 good guy of all time. He then goes to WCW and is the number one bad guy of all time. So he's drawn money and big money and carried companies on his back on both sides of the ledger. Then he goes back to WWF and they boo The Rock.
One of my favorite matches ever.
Yep.
Right? So The Rock is in the conversation for great talkers of all time. Steve Austin is in the conversation. And then Hogan still to this day, well, maybe not so much in recent years. He kind of gets booed a little bit, but that's for other reasons, which
We won't go there, right?
I'm not here to. I'm talking about Hulk Hogan. I'm not talking about Terry Bollea
Gotcha.
on a hot mic expressing his private thoughts that have now become public. But Hulk Hogan, the on-screen character, is the greatest wrestler, sports entertainer of all time because he's drawn money and big money on both sides of the good guy and the bad guy side. So it's got to be Bobby Heenan. It's got to be Hulk Hogan. It's got to be Rowdy Piper. And it's probably Paul Heyman. Those are probably your four. I just say MJF because he's just doing such good stuff. CM Punk is in the conversation. Chris Jericho's in the conversation.
Samoa Joe.
Jim Cornette is in the conversation. I love Samoa Joe.
Samoa Joe.
I love Samoa Joe.
You know Samoa Joe is my guy.
Yeah.
That is my guy. He is the only person I've ever seen live and in his face check Brock Lesnar. He's the only person that's ever did it in his face right then and there. He said, "You look at me when I'm talking to you before I put you to sleep." No one. I've been sold since then.
And that shows you how much Brock Lesnar respects Samoa Joe to let him do that.
True. Very true.
You can tell who Brock respects and doesn't respect. Like there's obviously, we know the story of Brock and Riddle.
Yeah,
there's an issue there. But you can tell like Brock respects Drew McIntyre. Brock respects Keith Lee. He respected Samoa Joe. There was an incident in a match where Braun Strowman was a little stiff on Brock and Brock just knocked him the fuck out. There's your F-bomb. There's your swear for the show.
Damn. There it is.
Was it worth it?
There it is. That's waiting on it. Jimmy, my guy. I know this conversation could have continued for hours and hours, but we don't want to hold you up all night.
I'm running out of water and my voice is
I hear you. I hear you. But for the time we've had here talking everything wrestling, WWE, WrestleMania, sprinkled in some AEW, the time has been greatly appreciated for our 99th episode. Thank you for joining Sam and myself here on Double M Live, this WrestleMania WWE edition.
Sam, it was a pleasure to meet you, sir. Success going forward. Mike, always a pleasure to talk to you. We should actually talk more.
Yes.
You have my information. You know how to get a hold of me.
Absolutely.
Whatever I can do for you going forward that helps you be successful, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to do it for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Jimmy.
Like I said, if my voice wasn't fading out on me, I'd talk more, but I'd probably talk too much anyway.
This won't be the last time.
We'll do something along the lines again, especially next WrestleMania. I think we're all going to the same show in Providence. WrestleMania
Backlash. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll be there as well.
Backlash, be in Rhode Island.
We'll be there as well. So
I'll shoot you a message as to where we're pre-gaming.
Sam,
because that's not for public consumption. So
okay, say less. We will talk off air. Say less for sure.
Music to me.
For everybody watching, everybody tuned in and listening, this has been Double M Live's 99th episode. Again, stay tuned for more information dropping for the 100th episode coming soon. For Sam, for Jimmy, and myself, Mr. Mike Nice, we appreciate you watching, listening. Double M to the moon always. Y'all take it easy.